Hello and welcome to the AppleInsider Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Hilliard, and I'm joined by William Gallagher. I'm on vacation this week, but, I decided to come back and record this show because why not? Nothing better going on anyway. This is a staycation, as they say, so I'm sitting in my house anyway. William, how are you doing this week?
I'm regretting using the betas, but, other than that, I'm completely fine. Yeah, and not on holiday.
Yeah, the betas are definitely interesting. I've been kind of hoping that we get an update this week, but clearly they're holding off until they're ready for public release, because if we get one more dev beta, I assume the public beta will be the day after. If we don't get one, the public beta could come anytime. Even as we record, it could be out today. So we'll see how that goes, but this week we have Apple Insider Plus. That is our premium segment. If you are a paid user, you're going to get no ads in the show, and you're going to get a segment on, we're going to discuss kind of what we've been kind of teasing out for the last few weeks. Someone asked about this because I mentioned it, but leaving Google, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, those things, and choosing different platforms. What does William use? What am I using these days? And why we make those kinds of decisions. So we'll be diving into that for Apple Insider Plus. And I would like to thank our sponsors this week. For those of you who are here on the non-paid version, you'll hear about OpenCase, Constant Contact, ExpressVPN, and Mint Mobile. So let's dive right in. William, Firefox is a browser people still use, apparently.
Yes, and I was amused to find the thing I used to dislike about Firefox is that it kept being updated with major version releases. I would be writing a sentence about Firefox 101, and by the end of the sentence, 102 was out and things. They seem to have steadied at around 140.0.4. It's a good number to stop with, and apparently actually now there is good reason to use, well, that might be going a bit strong there is a reason to use Firefox, or actually I'm going to admit I forgot Microsoft Edge exists. The same reason to use Firefox also applies to Microsoft Edge, which is do you know this already, or you'd like to have a shot in the dark of the color scheme is great or something?
No, go ahead. I literally use nothing but Safari, and even if I had the option of using other web engines on iPad, I probably would still just use Safari.
Well, Safari happens to be my favourite as well. There are certain systems I use that have to, that require Chrome for, as far as I can see it, no very good reason. So I keep Chrome hidden somewhere off the corner of the Mac. Safari is my favourite, so I wouldn't have noticed this. But as of the next version of Chrome, it will no longer run on macOS Big Sur, which is like kind of a watershed moment in a way, because Big Sur was the version of macOS. It was version 11. After all those years of macOS 10, Big Sur was version 11, and it came along with massive redesign, or what seemed like a massive redesign until we got Liquid Glass and Apple Silicon and all of these things. And now it's so far in the past that Google Chrome is abandoning support for it. And until Google announced that, I hadn't noticed Apple has abandoned support for Big Sur in Safari. I can't remember how far Apple goes back. It's like 2 or 3 OSs. Google's been doing well, hanging on to Big Sur. And Firefox is still hanging on to Big Sur. So you could almost give them the prize there, except just for a little while longer, Microsoft Edge will run its very latest version on macOS Catalina.
Oh my goodness.
That's pushing it.
It's really funny that this company in particular, or just anyone, supports anything that far back, because if you look at the support for, or just the user base for macOS, iOS, iPadOS versions, it's usually the current version is like 92%. It takes about 6 months to get there sometimes, but like immediately it's in the 70s, and then it just ticks up from there for the like iOS 26 on October 1st will be 70%-ish. And then we'll jump straight to 80-90% by the end of the year, and then trickle down from there throughout the beginning of the year, depending on how chaotic the release is. Maybe everyone will abandon it and decide not to use it. But generally speaking, Apple gets adoption rates up really quickly. I think macOS is similar, not exactly the same scale. It has more variety, more older computers running. But Apple also supports such old computers with their modern systems that older people can go ahead and update. So it's not a big deal. But looking at developers, it's more of a hassle to support those older systems. And I suppose maybe Firefox being what it is, it's kind of the Linux of browsers is the way I view it. And maybe someone will email me and tell me I'm wrong, but like it's the fourth wheel of browsers, right? We have Chrome, we have Safari. I guess Opera still exists. I don't know. People use Edge, but yeah, it exists. And the fact that they go back so far in support is odd because they're supporting 1-2% of the audience, right? So it makes sense to kill stuff. I'm listening to developers talk about today when iOS 26 releases, if they shouldn't just push an update that only supports iOS 26 and just cut everything else off, because that's how confident they are in their user base that they'll update. So kind of funny.
The thing with the Mac, though, is it takes longer because people have other applications that aren't updated in time. So people hang on to Macs. Plus, Macs tend to be production machines, and you do not change your Mac in the middle of a big job. So it felt like a bigger issue than that. But I didn't even notice that Safari doing it because I do that as well. I update all the time. I mean, even Google, though, I should say why this is important. Google, even in its note saying that it was doing this, was stressing the urgent need to always use the latest version of any browser you're using because of security issues. And actually, it was reported earlier this week, but it was actually a couple of weeks ago, Apple was in a workshop with the European Union over the Digital Markets Act, and it was being asked about third-party browsers being supported, particularly on the iPhone and all that stuff. And one of the legal team there made a point that he could, off the top of his head, list 100 security risks that all browsers are facing right now. And his argument was, this is why we must look after this, why we have to be so careful. I hadn't appreciated that a browser was such a attack vector, might have been the phrase he used.
I mean, you're clicking on things all the time, and all you have to do is, hijack one of those links, and you can definitely worm your way into someone's system, depending on the system and its security. Luckily, people don't really have to worry about that as much on macOS, because on top of the security you have in your browser, there's also the security of your system and preventing downloads you didn't authorize and all of that stuff. But yeah, the browser is definitely a big attack vector, which is also part of why Apple has been updating its iCloud Passwords app to work with Firefox for Windows. So if you are a Firefox user and you have multiple computers and you're working on multiple operating systems, you have a better choice, variety anyway, if you're using iCloud Passwords. So that's interesting. But moving on,
I didn't know that.
From all of Apple announced that, I think, last week. We might have missed it on the last episode, but it was around the time we published. So moving on from browser news, interestingly, this week's kind of what you'd call a slower week. We've got a lot of iPhone 17-ish news. Emmys, I'm looking up ahead here.
Yes.
A little bit of a controversy corner this week, so we'll get on to it. So iPhone, you guys do all the fun stuff without me, so I'm gone for a week, and you guys are like over here, like getting iPhones banned in the United States and stuff. What's going on with this Chinese-made iPhone dispute in the United States?
Well, it is complicated, and I think the headline probably now should be that Apple approached us after that story came out with a statement saying that they're unaffected by it. So Apple doesn't think we need to worry. Probably right. I mean, they're Apple. They know more than I do. There is still a small reason to be concerned, because the story is that BOE, and I can never remember what it stands for, but they make a Chinese company that makes display panels for a lot of iPhones. They've been in a long legal tussle with Samsung, with each accusing the other of basically taking trade secrets, to kind of bore this down a little bit. But this week, the American ITC, International Trade Commission, preliminary, is that even a word, found on behalf of Samsung, and is recommending that, should this continue to the end of its investigation, that BOE panels will be banned from import into the States. Now, on the one hand, official result isn't expected till about November. To go back on the first hand, the ITC apparently very rarely changes its mind after the preliminary finding, but then back on the second hand, after they've made their final ruling, it goes to President Trump to decide, and he has 2 months to figure out whether or not to ban something or just allow it to continue. The thing is, an issue here is it's not very clear yet from the ITC whether they are banning the BOE-made panels, which they definitely are, but that alone or that and devices that they're in, because on their own, there are no display panels imported into the States. Everything is put in a phone first.
Yeah, I don't go to BOE's website and order glass every now and then just for fun.
Oh, you should try it. They do some in blue, for example. It's very good. But the clarification is the problem. Will it be that? Apple seems to think not, and I'm sure they're right. It's just there is a logical further step, which is that Samsung could choose to sue any company that uses BOE.
So
they could.
This trade secret thing's interesting because it gets down to a bigger problem. I need to finish this book, but the Apple in China book actually gets into this because there's this whole issue of would China's position in technology be where it is today if it wasn't for Apple and other companies basically teaching them how to make these devices, right? Apple went over there, helped them build these factories, and basically taught employees this is how you make this chip. This is how you make this very perfect glass that we want in our devices, and you have this failure rate. And then basically they could take that engineering prowess and apply it to their own Chinese-made manufactured devices and glasses and technologies. And this has become such a concern that this is part of this whole trade war with China kind of thing, and American government, whatever, trying to reclaim some of its stuff and get us out of there because we're basically enabling a quote-unquote enemy, or I guess competitor. I don't know exactly how the United States sees China anymore, but we've been enabling them to push past us by giving them access to so much. And, Samsung claiming that, BOE, and it's also complicated. But again, just a plug to, go check out that book if you're an Apple fan, again, just because I think it's interesting and kind of dives into this a little bit more. But I'm with you. I think I find this a little fishy that Apple's just maybe trying to brush this under the rug and say, don't look over here. It's all fine. But, this combined with potential semiconductor tariffs that we're expecting and other things, Apple's got a lot going on right now, but we'll get into more of that later.
Yeah, you mentioned I just threw in about building factories and things, and that reminds me, BOE, they were making display panels, it must have been for the iPhone 13 range, and they made an unauthorized design change to make something easier to manufacture. Mm-hmm. The instant they did that, the iPhone 13 or 14, Apple killed the orders completely. BOE was totally out of the picture, and it's taken a lot of time, but they've kind of slowly come back in. And just about a week ago, maybe 10 days, there was a report that BOE had actually opened a new factory explicitly in the hope of getting Apple orders. And I wonder, is Apple going to think, how reliable are these people, and are we actually buying some? I don't know. I think BOE is in an interesting position, but presumably by its own choice.
So I wonder about displays, because apparently some anonymous tipster has basically shared that Apple's going to continue its plans for an anti-reflective and scratch-resistant display, which, to be fair, they're already anti-reflective and scratch-resistant, but they've apparently been working to get them more so anti-reflective and scratch-resistant, and this is an interesting rumor just because it keeps cropping up. I'm not sure what to make of it other than Apple's probably continuing its work with Gorilla to make better glass, and this version of this glass might finally make it into the iPhone 17 Pro. So, fine. Do you put screen protectors on your phone?
No.
And do you ever have issues with scratches or gouges or micro abrasions?
Not one. Well, no, okay, 8 years ago, the entire phone fell out of my hand. Well, more than it launched out of my hand. I could see it arc across the side of the car down towards the road, and that somewhat destroyed everything. So you can call that micro abrasions, I suppose, but otherwise, in general use, not a single thing.
I've got damage on my phone display, and honestly, it's unnoticeable in use, but if I shine some light on it, I can see a couple of hairline scratches. My fingernail can find them. Not the end of the world. Generally, by this time, I'm at this point. I can't remember if it was this year or last year, or it could have been 15 years ago. There's a lot of time dilation happening recently. But if we remember on a previous episode of the show, my phone got slingshotted off of my bike into the pavement and shattered the display. It might have been this one. And I had it replaced. And since, if it has been this phone, since then I've had a few new scratches appear. But cracking, no, I've never really had issues with like direct gouging or anything. But I will never say no to more protection against scratching. The problem is, the more scratch-resistant glass becomes, the more your ability to shatter it increases, because you're basically it's a inverse relationship. It's you can get around that inverse relationship by doping the glass, basically. Doping, I guess, you would add elements to it that aren't just the original glass materials in order to add strength to it. But then you're also introducing the ability for imperfections to crack. Material science is complicated, but
yeah, that's why I didn't appreciate any of that. I've realised actually this is why you change your phone every year, because you wear it out. But also you're clearly more active than I am. My iPhone sitting on my desk 15 hours a day doesn't get a lot of scratch potential. That's the difference between us.
Yeah, basically the tougher and harder that you make your glass to basically make it resistant to scratching, I guess you're increasing like the density of the glass, but you're basically increasing the ability for it to shatter, because the latent energy of the glass is increased. On and on and on. I worry that Apple's targeting the wrong thing, because scratch resistance is fine, but I think people are more worried about shattering their glass, because they always make this mistake of, I bought the screen protector for my device. Look, now I don't have to worry about it breaking. No. If your screen was going to shatter, whatever force is going to shatter that screen will also break the screen protector and still shatter your screen. Like, there's no stopping that. What a screen protector does is prevent these scratches, the micro abrasions, because you have a layer between it and the glass, and then you can just replace it randomly like a Band-Aid or something. So some companies make really good glass. I think dbrand has some really good glass screen protectors. I toy with them every now and then end up ruining them and then give up. So I like the feel of iPhone glass. If someone could make an iPhone glass screen protector that feels like I'm touching the iPhone glass, I would buy it. But no one's been able to replicate that.
I actually like the feel of a bare iPhone. I mean, I've recently been trying them in cases and things like that, but bare is good.
I've been
I think
sticking with the leather MagSafe backing that I use with no sides on it. I like that. You get to hold the titanium and have a leather on the back. But yes, I like the idea of anti-reflective is another funny one. Like some people take that as they're going to put nanotexture in the phone. A version of it, maybe. Like they might even call it nanotexture, but whatever they do to the phone, it won't be what's in the iPad, and certainly not what's in the Mac. They can do some light etching, I guess, and make the light basically absorb it, refract into itself, and make the screen less likely to reflect. Like that's where the Netflix show Black Mirror comes from, because you're staring into your smartphone. Maybe they'll have to change their name if Apple ever introduces nanotexture to the iPhone, because you won't be able to see your reflection anymore.
I can count on the fingers of one finger how many times it's been so bright around. I mean, in England, how long it's been so bright that seeing the screen was a problem, and I just, turn my back to the sun to do what I've got to do. Is it more of an issue from people than I realise?
iPhones can get pretty bright these days, but the sun is unforgiving, so it's definitely about angle and light and everything. But I don't know. We'll see what Apple does here. We don't have much longer to wait. It's kind of funny to think that we are in the middle of July, and I expect we'll see iPhone. We're looking at rumors. First week of September could be the announcement, which seems odd to me. Does that seem odd to you?
It does slightly early. I remember once years ago, was this a very dull Sunday afternoon? I was working out the dates of announcements and where they fell around American holidays, like isn't Labor Day somewhere in September? Here in the UK we don't have it, so I'm not fully sure what that is.
It's like the last day of August this year. Like it's the end of August.
Okay, and it's a holiday for you. So that's
now I'm doing the math in my head. If Labor Day is the last day of August, then the 8th of September is the second week of September. But it still seems early. All right, so yeah, reflectiveness in the display, fine. I feel like there's bigger things to tackle with iPhone, but I mean, they're always looking to improve the display, so we'll see what they do. But we're also probably going to get a new Apple Watch this fall, and new Apple Watch, hopefully new sensors, but the existing Apple Watches seem to be doing some pretty interesting stuff. Apple has a lot of ongoing studies around, especially around health involving the Apple Watch, and people can participate that using Apple's, what is it, the research app that Apple publishes?
Yeah, research kit, yes.
And this one has been gathering data on menstrual cycles and all of that, but basically they were able to find that they can basically gauge if someone is pregnant using data from the Apple Watch, and catch it pretty early too, which is really incredible.
It's actually, you're right, it's from the Apple Watch, but it's not solely from the sensors that we're used to of it. It's also the accelerometer, the motion sensors, all of the stuff. So it's actually people's gait that's part of it. Certainly weight changes, exercise changes, levels of energy, sleep pattern changes, all of this combined with, direct heart measurements and things, become this indicator of quite a lot of things. I mean, pregnancy is the big surprise because it was like arguably 92% accurate within quite a limited survey. Diabetes detection was somewhere in the 60% and things like that. But it's not only, it's a combination of all of the Apple Watch's possible sensors, all of its detections, and doing that over time. So I can't remember, they talked about human temporal measurements. So the way we think in days and weeks, whereas all the watch sensors are every second. Combining all of these in a certain way that, frankly, I didn't understand, gives you this somewhat amazing prediction. I mean, I was a little critical there of the size of the study. This is what Apple is doing with Research Kit overall, is giving possibly the greatest health database, number of volunteers in any research study. But in this case, they did a very impressive, I think, 25,000 women who were not pregnant, where this was like a control, but only somewhere around 430 who were for it. So I don't know why the numbers skewed that way. But within that, a 92% pregnancy detection is stunning.
I would say the sample size is just reflective of the fact how many pregnant people with Apple Watches are available volunteering their time.
Oh, sure, but then having the control thing be
that high, right.
5 times higher is not. Although, actually, sorry, just suddenly saying this reminds me, I'm impressed here at Apple, but weren't there stories in the years before that Amazon would calculate whether you were pregnant or not and start sending you suggestions for baby products?
You're not searching for baby stuff unless you already know you're pregnant, or at least expecting to become pregnant. But the idea of this is interesting because it gets back to how I use my technology, and I'm not in danger of becoming pregnant, at least not anytime soon. That I'm aware of. But I keep track of everything. Like I like sleep tracking, and obviously I'm wearing an Apple Watch, so it's doing the gait tracking and all that. And I log my food and my water, and even when I brush my teeth and all of that stuff using all the smart technology around me. And I try to tell people, that how interesting this is. Not necessarily that it's useful to me today, but the heuristics of having it over the last decade. Apple Health, I want to say 2014, 2015, or it was around the time of the Apple Watch when it was announced, but it has been around this long now, and I'm 34 this year, and I'm gonna continue aging. It comes for all of us.
Well, I hope you are. Yes.
And if it stops, it'll be a problem, William. I think that as this stuff gets better, especially as like Apple Intelligence models and the way we parse data becomes better, we'll be able to start spotting patterns over these years, if not decades, of our health data that we just have never been able to do before. Apple talked about when Apple Watch came out, how they were able to do health programs on asthma and heart rate and stuff with tens of thousands of participants, never done before in the science of this, because you just can't get that many volunteers. And the ability to gather that data and analyze it quickly is just improving over time. So even if today logging that I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich isn't that useful overall, it's just going to be data in a database. I hope that as time moves forward, I will be able to get these patterns and trends and analysis to tell me more information, and for people who can get pregnant, it's interesting because, your body changes a lot during pregnancy, even in the early term. And if you're gathering all of this data and it has 4 or 5 years of your data already, and then it just sees this sudden shift in your heart rate and how you're sleeping and what you're eating and how you're walking, it can tell you you're pregnant before you even know that you're pregnant. And that's incredible. And I like that, not only just for pregnancy, but for all health. Like, I like the idea of this just only getting better. And that's why I invest every year in a new Apple Watch, just because even if it's the slightest adjustment, I like the idea that I'm getting more data into my database.
We should say that although the watch at the moment has visible menstrual cycle tracking, this study uses the data in a certain way. It's not that it's part of the product yet, that you're not going to get an alert suddenly for it. But and actually, since you talked about health monitoring before, I'm still avoiding, scales, for example. But the other week, I bought a smart water bottle. I tried it out, and I liked it so much, I've now bought 2 of them. One to travel around with when I do get away from my office. And I am finding, the tracking is actually encouraging me to drink more water, which was the aim in the original. So it helps.
Not to get too far off base, but like I'm testing some water bottles right now. I'll be writing a review eventually. But and there's Find My in these new bottles. I love that. Yeah. Give me Find My in everything. Apple, we need 32's. I'm going to run out of spots soon. We need 150. Like I want to track my house at this point. Just make sure it doesn't move in the next tornado. Okay. If I need to go find it over the next, the yellow brick road, I can find it. But it's really interesting. Gamifying a lot of this stuff is nice. Getting streaks, drinking enough water during the day. Getting that little glow. The new bottles play sounds when, like they can chirp at you and stuff. And it's a lot of personality to these little devices. And I love it. But like, I still feel like the apps themselves are their own thing. Like Hydrate Spark has a fine app. It has social elements. I don't need all that. I really wish Apple would maybe... And WWDC already happened, so we're going to have to wait another year to hear anything about anything changing in health. So I might as well give up now. But in the future, it would be great if Apple could rethink health, redesign it, and build it around a more powerful, interesting GUI instead of it just being miles and miles of bracketed data that kind of surfaces information. But with all this Apple Intelligence stuff, maybe we'll see more on it.
This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact. Time, skills, money. When it comes to growing your business, we all know that engaging with our customers is crucial, but the question is always how. Most of us don't have the time, the skills, or the money to put towards keeping up with marketing every day. We're too busy running our companies to begin with. Well, let me introduce you to Constant Contact. Your mini marketing team awaits. And the key word for me there is team. You're in control, you're doing what you need, but alongside all of the online features from Constant Contact, there are real people at the other end, people who know business, people who know marketing. And I know that because I've talked to them. Once I'd just signed up to use the trial version of Constant Contact, and I had a phone call from the company. Now, normally nobody rings anyone unless they're trying to sell something, but in this case, it's not that it was exactly the opposite, but it almost was, because this call was about going through what I did not need from them as much as what I did. It was about what I shouldn't pay for because I wouldn't use it, or at least I wouldn't use it yet. Constant Contact has features that everyone needs, the kind of immediate solutions like website landing pages and event management. It's got automated sending of posts and messages. It's got tools to fit your brand and help you move your business further, whatever size it is. But that list of features doesn't tell you a really important fact, which is that Constant Contact scales. It is right for your one-man or one-woman business today, and it is right for your corporation tomorrow. Find out for yourself and get a free 30-day trial when you go to ConstantContact.com. That's ConstantContact.com, where you can try the service free for 30 days. ConstantContact.com. And thanks to Constant Contact for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. This episode is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Now, I'm going to sound like I'm exaggerating here, but I just wish I were. For Like the way animal predators aim for the slowest prey, hackers target people with the weakest security. And if we're not using ExpressVPN, that's you and me. ExpressVPN works on all of your devices. It's one subscription and it works everywhere. Plus, it's estimated that a criminal with their own, handy supercomputer would take over 1 billion years to crack ExpressVPN's encryption. So for me, I know I can just press a single button and it's turned on, it's running, it's protecting me. Well, actually, I don't often turn it on because I don't often turn it off. Usually, VPNs, just because of how they have to route your data through their service, they do make all of your internet use just that little bit slower, sometimes noticeably slower, but usually always a little bit slower. Except with ExpressVPN, there was this time when I went to switch it on and found that it already was. I hadn't noticed any slowdown and I was being constantly protected. Now that was during a extremely protracted wait at Geneva Airport, which is a fine airport, never going to knock it, but I got there way too early and I had to do hours of work in order to pass the time, justify the time. I wouldn't have risked doing that. I wouldn't have risked logging into my systems or say my UK bank accounts if I hadn't got ExpressVPN on and running. You can have exactly the same benefits I have. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/AppleInsider. That's expressvpn.com/AppleInsider to find out how you can get up to 4 extra months free. expressvpn.com/AppleInsider. And thanks to ExpressVPN for supporting the Apple Insider podcast.
I'm hoping and crossing my fingers, speaking of the near future, that we have an Apple Intelligence focused keynote in the fall. That is just, here's contextual Siri. It's actually working. Here's this new Apple Health partner. It's going to release in 26.3, right? Like, because it was peppered through WWDC. It wasn't missing, but there wasn't a focus on it. And I wonder if Apple could treat, if they are going to treat it like a product, if they shouldn't have a product event for it, if that wouldn't help hype up their use of it anyway. But there's no Apple Intelligence news this week, it seems.
No, other than my continuing exploration of Apple Intelligence in shortcuts. I'm finding it so really shockingly useful. How many things you can just do by bunging in an Apple Intelligence thing in the middle of an existing shortcut. So no news, but I'm very happy with Apple Intelligence. And how often do you get to say that?
Just gets back to, I've been listening to a lot of shows, catching up on the news, and we discussed, I believe last week, I'm not going to remember names. Names are my worst weakness, but we had that head engineer for Apple's framework model team leaving for Meta because of $200 billion, some outrageous payment, whatever it was. Yes, it was going to be secured over years and has to meet certain goals, but still it's an incredible amount of money. That person leaving and people's concerns like, oh, is this the doom of Apple Intelligence and all this usual nonsense around it? But every time I look at what Apple's doing versus everyone else, I'm still just in shock of the fact that people see it as bad. Whereas like I see what Sam Altman is talking about, or we see what's happening with Grok, or we see what's happening with these other companies and what they announce, and it's just silly and lackluster. I listened to a show, 404 Media covered how there's this whole website dedicated to creating terrible explicit materials and stuff like that, and they only recently changed the rules in order to get around it. And this whole thing is just such an odd environment. And the defenders of AI, like, again, I'm not totally against it. It's just there are very staunch defenders of, just like Apple fans, how dare you say something bad about this amazing, amazing technology. I'm seeing posts on Blue Sky about companies telling their employees, it's not, should I use AI on this problem? It's, why didn't you use AI on this problem? And that is awful. It's just terrible. That's a terrible mental state to be in. And so many, we see this more and more. It's like an acceleration around all this technology. And it's just like, stop.
I was very concerned this week when I learned that Grok is going to be sent an over-the-air update to all Tesla cars. And there's something about, well, it won't do anything, so why are you doing it? I don't know. But you just have this the irresistible joke that the cars will only be able to turn right.
No, so anyway, I think Apple is still the only one really approaching this correctly, and I know that's a stupid thing to say on an Apple podcast where we like Apple, but the reality is it's still just a useful tool, and Apple isn't promising the universe, and they seem to be keeping privacy and security in mind and following the principles that I care about as a technology user. I hope that Apple continues to push those mentalities into the technology, and as they implement, hopefully, private cloud compute versions of Claude and ChatGPT and all of that, that we can continue to promote that this stuff can be green energy. This stuff can be private and secure, and it can be on device or in a server that is like it's on device, right? Because of its security. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited by those things, whereas I look at the rest of the AI industry and what they are promising, and I just shrug because it doesn't seem exciting to me. It's like interesting, but not exciting. Like, I see these videos. I visited some friends recently, and I was made aware of something I had never heard of before because I'm not on TikTok or that kind of social media. And he showed me these videos that are completely AI generated of a Sasquatch character running around like he's filming himself with a selfie stick, and he's like doing a vlog, I guess, running through the forest saying outrageous things, finding an alien and going and partying with the alien and crashing a spaceship. And it's all completely AI generated using really sophisticated looking graphics. Like, it's not real. It's clearly fake. And there's a lot of mistakes being made throughout the videos, but they're generating this content from nothing using prompts. And it's going viral, millions of views on social media platforms. And just, we are not ready for that as a society, and I think it's neat. Like, cool, someone went and made this, and it probably would not exist otherwise. How would you make this in real life? Or I guess you could go through a computer program and learn over years and years and to make something that realistic and that graphical fidelity to produce a 3-minute video about a Sasquatch talking about aliens. Like, it does seem like wasted human potential at that point, and maybe using a little computer tool to make it in however many hours it took that person to make it, using however much energy it took to make. I get it, but at the same time, it's not that big a deal to me. I don't look at that and say that's the future. We're upending humanity with this technology, and I just want everyone listening to the show to hopefully remain a little bit grounded when it comes to AI, as we call it.
There's a thing going on in the UK at the moment that's like that, except it's more exploitative. It has, I was going to say respected politicians, that's a contradictory in terms, known politicians and respected economics experts or journalists apparently advocating, basically get-rich-quick schemes. And most of it is startlingly believable. One of a particular, the Prime Minister just looks a bit ropey, but the rest of people are saying things they would never say, and there's reputational damage to them. And how are these things getting on? It's a frightening thing, but clever. Yeah,
I am aware of people, I'm not going to name names, in my life who would be browsing Facebook and come across a video feed where it looks like it's Oprah talking about a weight loss drug, and it's being endorsed by Oprah. And if you look at it long enough, you'll see that the words coming out of your device are not matching what is the lips of Oprah speaking. And there's this, I can never say the word. It's Chiron. It's the Chiron
yeah,
that's going across the bottom of the screen, and like it looks almost legit. But if you take 2 seconds to look, it's not AI. This is actually old. It's just someone took some videos of Oprah, stitched them together and put the animated text over top of it. And I know people who have fallen for that, bought the pill, and then had all their money stolen, right? So that was unsophisticated and almost dull. And now we can just make a video of Oprah saying those things, and it looks convincing. If you know the telltale signs of AI, they maybe look a little too shiny. some of the geometry of their skin doesn't make sense, or their hair doesn't move naturally, or there's wind that shouldn't be there, right? Like, if you know the telltale signs, you can usually spot AI from a mile away, but these people were falling for non-lip sync videos of clips before, right? This is getting so much more sophisticated, and we're not ready for this. Like, we heard about recently in the United States, this isn't political, don't worry, but it involves political figures, a U.S. senator voice being spoofed and making phone calls to various entities and making them believe that they were talking to this U.S. senator. And that was a voice call. Imagine the damage that can be done with video. How do you even know what you're watching is real? How do you even know if this podcast is real, William?
This is getting meta and depressing at the same time. If I just mentioned blue and drama or something, will that convince you I'm me? And you can talk about games and iPads? Well, but no.
I will say that thankfully, Apple is working on grammar correction tools. That's all I'm saying. Compared to everything else, I think we're going to be okay. It's just
actually no. I do want to correct. Well, I'm with you on this. I like Apple. That's why we're doing this. I think you were right about how they're doing it. But you said they're not promising the Earth, and they're not. And they kind of promised a little bit of the Earth with that thing of they're so useful.
It looks exciting.
Who's that bloke I met
AppleInsider
2 months ago somewhere? So they promised that and they didn't deliver. So they're not, they're
not perfect
all the way
but,
there, but
again, this is that reverse reality distortion field. It's the reverse.
Oh, right.
That term was come up with to say how people react around Apple. I think it's inverted itself, and now everything you view through the lens of Apple is bad or whatever, and everyone else is. It doesn't matter how bad everyone else is being. If Apple makes a tiny little mistake, they'll never recover. But it seems they haven't made a mistake though. They have Apple TV Plus,
yes,
and they have been really killing it. Right, Murderbot just finished up. We have a couple of new shows coming. Saw a couple of trailers, sneak peeking some stuff coming later down the line. They are really churning out the content, and I think they finally maybe hit some pace post Ted Lasso, even though Ted Lasso is returning. Severance got a lot of attention this year at the Emmys, but go down the numbers here, William. What kind of nominations are we looking at for 2025?
Well, I'm glad you said about nominations, because we've had things before where Apple's been heavily nominated and then got nothing. Mm-hmm. So you don't know till you know. But also it's quite funny. It depends on where you look, what the count is. Apple says it was nominated 81 times. Other people say 79. And the reason is some companies count in adverts. Do you count the client, which is Apple, or the production company that made it? And people go either way. But of all of those, Severance got 27 nominations across every category you can think of. Fortunately, writing, of course. What else would there be without writing? But acting, directing, editing, stunt work even was in there. And then the studio got, is it 21 or 23 nominations, again, across the board for it. And then plus a couple for adverts, all sorts of things over it. So it was an impressive number for Apple.
Well,
and it is their best ever, but there's actually slightly more to it than I think doesn't get noticed, which is this age-old business of how Apple has quite few shows compared to anyone else. So those nominations, all of those nominations that Apple got, Apple put forward for consideration something like 26 shows. Netflix put in something like 130 or something like that, and all the rest did huge amounts and did well with it. In fact, in some cases did more than Apple, but from a much larger base.
Right, and Apple, I don't have the number of shows that, because it is 81 nominations, 27 of which go to Severance, but in total we're talking about 4 shows for Apple-ish. I don't have the number of shows, individual shows, but 81 awards across 4 or 5, maybe even 6 shows. I don't have that number, but it's a low amount, below 10, I'm sure. Whereas Netflix, like you said, submitted 113 shows and earned 120 nominations. That's like 1 nomination per show. I know they didn't like. It's more like they got.
It's not like that.
No, they got nominated for awards for probably 8 or 9, 10 shows, and that those 120 nominations go across those like 10 shows. But again, it's quality over quantity for Apple, and I think they're kind of proving it. Like Netflix is stuffing the ballot box more or less, whereas Apple has enough confidence and hopefully know-how, and they're not just shooting in the dark. I think they are being very selective, and they showed up with a strong contention and walked away probably with about half of them getting nominated, whereas their Netflix's nomination rate is more like 10%, something like that. So it's interesting how Apple can do this, but it keeps coming up of why does Apple do this? And I really am going to take Tim Cook at his word and just say they like it. They're doing it because they know they can do it and they think they can do a good job at it. Like it's about the money and the prospects and getting attention and all of that, but I think it truly is also about we think we can make cool stuff, and they set out to do that.
This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues and 3-day weekends, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. And that is why people are making the switch to Mint Mobile. I can't make that change because I'm in the UK, but as it happens, I have today been looking for better deals for my iPhone usage, so I am really conscious of prices and also, frankly, of how confusing the myriad plans are with the nearly myriad number of providers out there. Mint Mobile, though, makes switching easy, and I think obviously it makes it the right thing to do too. That's especially now because for a limited time, Mint Mobile is offering 3 months of unlimited premium wireless service for $15 a month. So while I'm over here in the UK trying to figure out the differences between 2 and 3 and 5 incredibly similar packages, you can be on Mint Mobile and just enjoying the saving. This year, skip breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/AI podcast. That's mintmobile.com/AI podcast. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. This episode is brought to you by OpenCase. Tired of your MagSafe accessories slipping around or slipping off, especially when moving in and out of pockets? OpenCase is an iPhone case with a literal open space on the back to hold MagSafe accessories more securely in place while creating a thinner profile and lighter weight than traditional cases. This unique cutout allows MagSafe accessories to adhere directly to the back of the phone, cradling your accessory of choice in place with the lip that the cutout naturally creates. No more catching on jean pockets, bags or jackets. Wireless batteries, Apple wallets or other accessories will adhere straight to the back through the open space with OpenCase. In addition to the patented phone case, they have a suite of products that work specifically with their design or any iPhone with MagSafe. And it's not just OpenCase products that work with the case. As long as the accessory shares the same footprint or smaller as the open space, it should fit. You don't need to worry about the case being compatible with only one brand of accessories. Visit the OpenCase, that's the THE, opencase.com, and use promo code AppleInsider for 10% off. And thanks to OpenCase for supporting the Apple Insider Podcast. There is also the fact that Apple, as long as the show is doing well, Apple TV is apparently very encouraging of it, very supportive and not very interfering, which is the key thing. Ben Stiller, talking about Severance, said how few, if any, notes he's ever had from it. And the studio apparently had a thing where, because the studio has Hollywood cameos, they had the head of Netflix on, and apparently someone in Apple said, could you not use Tim Cook instead? And the show said, no. And, okay.
I haven't seen that episode, and I'm sure the Netflix CEO is great on camera. He might have done a stint on Curb Your Enthusiasm, because I do remember that show actually going. He was pitching a show about himself to multiple studios. He went to Netflix, he went to CBS, and I think they used actual people from those, which is very funny. And they did an excellent job in Curb doing that. And I haven't got to that part of the studio, but I expect that it was the same amount of respect and fun that they had at the expense of some of these companies. But including Tim in there would have complicated the script, I think, if only because this is a comedy show. And I don't know, I haven't got to that episode, so I don't know what light they were painting Netflix in, but if it was anything other than praise, I wonder if Apple would have wanted Tim Cook there.
Well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's not fully praise for it. It's like portraying Netflix as a sharp business, rather than anything bad for it.
So just kind of give it like, they're giving us the tough time, sure, but like again, it's still just odd. And Tim Cook is not an actor. He's what's the word? Wooden? Is that an approach?
That's so harsh. Yes, he was very good in the Severance reference when they changed from the innie to the outie, but he has not been. It was all right in the Mission Impossible stunt a few years ago in the distance, running
with the body double, and it wasn't him.
Yeah.
The only other one he did was with Mother Nature, and that whole skit was just so it was so dry. But yes, I feel like though that this does mean that we will get Tim Cook in an Apple TV Plus show. What if he shows up in the crowd at Ted Lasso? That's what I'm gonna. I bet you we're gonna get a pan over a box, and it's just gonna be like Phil Schiller fully decked out in like the Greyhound gear, and Tim Cook sitting next to him, just stoically like staring off into the distance. It'll be 3 seconds, and it'll be glorious. But
you'll have to tell me about it, because I just still couldn't get into Ted Lasso. I will believe you and applaud if necessary. But but speaking of things I do watch, there was really good news this week. Slow Horses has been renewed for a 7th season. We've only seen 4 so far, but I knew that 5 and 6 were well underway. At least 7's coming as well. So that's
one of the perks of
great.
being CEO. I'm sure Tim Cook has already seen those seasons. I wonder if he's the sole driver behind that. He's just like, I love Gary Oldman, and I just want more of this.
Will Smith writes those scripts, and there's some other fantastic writers for it, and I just think they've done an amazing job with it.
There are at least 4 different Will Smiths.
Well, the writer, Will Smith, the writer who wrote Slow Horses. There you go, that one. Okay. An incredibly tall man, I can tell you that. He was like 3 feet taller than me when I met him.
Yes, not the Fresh Prince or Men in Black.
No.
Will Smith.
Okay.
So, moving on, we're going to kind of fall into Controversy Corner backwards, but first, Apple's Home Hub. We keep getting little teases. I think this must be Bloomberg, because it's literally the only one who ever talks about this anymore. Yes, it was Bloomberg. It's a little pet project, I guess, but it's kind of a no-duh. We're just getting repeat information of Apple doesn't want to release this until Contextual Siri is available, which I still don't fully buy. I think they can release it without that, but maybe they're like, technically they can, but I think they want the momentum of new Siri and new product to carry each other. Like, they'll promote each other in cycles. Like, not only do you get this new device, you get this new thing, and we'll see. But it's not going to happen until probably early 26 now, because Apple hasn't finished this Contextual Siri stuff, and who knows? It's in the ether at this point. I've even heard some concerns that this might just disappear, which I don't think so either. I think this is a very smart device, no pun intended, for the home, and I don't see it going anywhere. Take as long as you need, release it when you can, maybe alongside a light bulb and a smart lock with Apple's branding on it, sure. But given that we've heard timelines, if you listen to HomeKit Insider, we talk about this usually as it comes up, but Apple's got plans over the next 4 or 5 years to start releasing smart home products and things. And maybe alongside this delay, maybe this is a boon, because now they can release a whole product line of smart ecosystem stuff instead of just the display, and then a year later a bulb, and then a year later a lock. Maybe they can just actually walk out on stage and be like, here's our camera. And like, you can just buy this whole ecosystem bundle and power your home from Apple, and that would be cool. I understand that it's frustrating. Like, I want this device too. I think it would be really interesting in the home, but at the same time, people get mad when Apple rushes things out, and they get mad when they delay them. So it's a lose-lose as far as that goes. I just want it to work when it's released.
To be fair, I think people also get mad when they release them on time. It's just generally mad. That's what people are like, and then you get used to it. I mean, I've always been less interested in this new for some reason, and I don't know why. Because I use my iPad around the house. It doesn't work, but I have HomeKit doing things for it. This should be good, but for some reason, I'm just fine. I'll have a look at it when it comes. So.
Oh man, we just got an interesting iPhone 17 Pro color rumor as we're recording. The iPhone, there could be an iPhone Pro color that is white to the eye, but under different lightings, it could shift color spectrums based on what light it's reflecting. This sounds like a chromatic paint or something like that.
Iridescent. Something.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah. This is a sketchy rumor from a sketchy source, so I'm not going to dive into it. But I just thought that was funny that dropped as we're talking here.
Although actually, as soon as you went on holiday, it seemed to me that every iPhone story was about a different color or a different combination of color, or this is dropped, or this is going on that one. So it's continuing. I think all the possible colors have been used up, and people are now just trying. Well, then it'll be many colors. Yeah. It'll be iPhone, and it's Technicolor. There's a joke there somewhere, but I'm not getting it. So. Okay.
Technicolor, something Bible story.
Dream.
Dream Weaver. Dolly Parton. So, someone will understand what I'm talking about. The iPhone colors, though, my sister is desperate for purple, and there seems to be a purple rumor. So, we'll see if that occurs. I'm happy with black or blue. And a lot of people in tech seem to be obsessed with the idea of an orange Pro phone, which I just find awful. So
yeah,
I can't do orange.
I didn't know that.
Orange is not a fun color for me. Tennessee orange. Ooh, I don't care. Sports. So controversy corner. We're going to get into this. So I guess I wanted to include this here because I'm going to say something about it. So as we enter this chapter, as always, feel free to skip ahead. We didn't really get any super sharp comments about last week. I'm surprised by that. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we're finally to the point where the listeners kind of understand the modus operandi here. But if you don't want to hear about politics or how it affects tech, even though we try to, we keep it even-handed, I understand not wanting to hear it. Please skip to the next chapter. We'll have something to talk about at the end of the show before we close up. So let's dive right in. Controversy corner begins. So Apple has announced yet again, this is so funny to me, it's like on a 6-month cycle. They just have a press release ready with $500 million in the title.
Yes.
So Apple promised, if you go back and look at this, it's really funny. They realized as the political spectrum became more and more polarized, we all know the golden escalator happened in 2014. And then things became very polarized starting in 2015, 2016. And then Apple, I think, because of political pressures from who was in the presidency, learned that it's good to make announcements about financial investment. Because increasingly over that time, Apple was making investment into the United States economy and manufacturing. They just weren't really trumpeting about it. No pun intended. But they decided we're going to just start announcing these figures in newsletters, and I think starting in like 2017, 18, they announced it was a lower ballpark number, let's say $50 million, $100 million investment, and this was into education programs in the United States. This was towards just basic stuff like that and getting people into the industry, semiconductor and stuff like that. And that seemed to do them good. That got them favor in the administration. And even as the new administration took over in 2020, the day after the inauguration or so, like right around that time, is when Apple released another press release. $250 million going to be invested into the United States economy. So the numbers and estimate. Sorry if I'm not exactly correct. But it did escalate into that mid-range. And then we're talking about 2 years later, another press release, $500 million, right? And since then, they've been hitting that 500. We're going to, over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years, we're going to invest $500 million into the United States economy. We're going to invest it into industry and education and all of this stuff. And every time that announcement is made, whoever is in charge goes out and says, Apple, the American company, is investing all this money in America. Look how great we are. And it's just like they've been talking about it for years. There's nothing changing. This is not new money. This is not a new investment. It's just they're reaffirming the fact that they're doing this over and over again. But every time they reaffirm it, everyone's like celebrating, like, whoa, $500 million. They were going to do it anyway.
I mean, good things that they're doing.
Yeah.
Let's not take away from that.
Good that they're doing. It's just, it's so easy to score political points is all I'm saying. It's so easy.
Yes. Well, if you have $500 million, it's easy.
Well, step one,
to score points with it.
Yeah, step one is $500 million. But anything is possible after that, of course. I just wanted to point out that we have yet another press release of $500 million. Tim Cook, American innovation drives everything we do at Apple, and we're proud to deepen our investment in the U.S. economy. Rare earth materials are essential for making advanced technology, and this partnership will help strengthen the supply of these vital materials here in the United States. We couldn't be more excited about the future of American manufacturing, and we will continue to invest in the ingenuity, creativity, and innovative spirit of the American people.
Do you know, to be fair, Tim Cook often says we couldn't be more excited, and this time you think, well, you could. Actually, you could manage it. Yeah.
I mean, have you ever seen him like particularly giddy? Maybe those iPhone events, like where he's like standing out front of Apple Park. It's hard to not smile when you're standing out there, I'm sure.
Sure. He seems happy when he opens a new shop. So,
but yes, this is just another one of those fun little PR pushes. But it looks like the Apple Ireland tax thing is finally kind of done. Can you tell me about this?
Yes. Well, how many years? It's been going on for more than 10 years. In fact, for the entire term of Marguerite Vestager, who was, until quite recently, basically the EU's head of anti-competition, she pushed for Apple to pay the taxes that she argued it owed Ireland, even though it was actually an agreement with the Irish government over how tax was paid. I mean, you can easily argue that Apple ought to be paying more, but you can't, I believe, argue that it was doing anything illegal for it. It was fully agreed. It was encouraged by Ireland, not just Apple, but mostly Apple, other countries as well, to attract the business to it. And the EU pushed through saying, because Ireland is one of the 27 member states, it's governed by the EU, at least in part, and the EU was able to force through 10 years or so of argument about this, and eventually won several years ago, but then appeals and things like that. And throughout all of this time, the amount of money it said Apple owed had to be kept in an escrow account, where you cannot believe how much money it's earned in interest. I think the most recent figure, funnily enough, was about 497 million. Maybe that's where the 500 million comes from. But it grows by that time. It's now in the utter billions. I've totally lost track of what it is, except as of this week, Ireland emptied that bank account, took the money, and ran. I need to point out that Ireland actually still disagrees with the EU about being forced to do this, but it now has $16 billion in revenue for its people. So there's a lot of good coming out of it. So it's just, I'm reluctant to say this word, but we are in controversy corner, so I will. It's one of the few times you mentioned Tim Smith not getting ecstatic. Well, there's one time he got angry. He described this whole thing as total political crap, and that's, I mean, from a CEO, especially someone like Tim Cook, is so politically minded, so right on message all the time. I thought that was very indicative of how deep this dug into Apple, but now it's over and behind them. So
yeah, and I mean, the targeting of Apple in this, when every company in the United States probably has some kind of an account in Ireland. Yes. I feel like the EU, Apple's reactions to the DMA and stuff seem more justified when you look at how many things the EU does against just Apple and punishing no one else, when inside of the EU there's a company that actively steals from artists and nothing is ever done about it. Just saying. Just the double standard is incredible.
We've talked before about how Apple and the EU for so long went on about how we're talking together and working to find compliant tools. And then slowly Apple has said, actually, no. They've ignored us, they've done this, they've done that. this is the same thing I mentioned before about a workshop, a DMA workshop. There's now an annual thing where each of the 5 or 6 gatekeeper companies, they get an hour or so with the EU and with interested other parties. And Apple's turn was a couple of weeks ago, but some footage has just come out, particularly of a section where they were talking about browsers. But amongst all that, you could see they had 2 legal guys from Apple, and they seem to be very technically knowledgeable as well, but also one of them was really quite prickly and threw in a really snarky comment about people being paid by Spotify to ask them and things. And then he kind of walked it back a little bit and then walked it forward again. But the attitude for it was definitely aggressive, I thought, and not used to that from Apple. You expect them to kind of do things,
even-handed,
behind the scenes, sort things out, calm, get what they want, but in a cleverer way than that. It just felt like either the guy's naturally antagonistic or they've really, really been pushed hard by the EU. Who knows which way.
Yeah, it's frustrating when, at least in Apple's position, and I'm not going to say for or against either direction here, but at least from Apple's point of view, they feel that they're in the right and that no one in the room will listen, and that can be very frustrating.
And Controversy Corner. I decree it ends here. I just like saying that. I'm sorry. So.
Yeah, so this was William had this position in Controversy Corner, but I think this isn't controversial, and it's like this isn't politically controversial, but it does have its tone, and I have a lot of background interest in this topic. So a developer is upset, understandably, that their app is going to get pulled from the App Store, the wheels of Aurelia. So I don't. This tickles the back of my brain somewhere. Maybe I had heard of this back when it released in 2016, but it hasn't really been touched since 2017, and so we're going on 7+ years since it has been updated. And Apple's like, yeah, we're going to pull this from the App Store. And the developer is saying, no, it works. The game is functional. Why are you pulling it? And Apple's argument is, well, you haven't updated it. It needs to be up to date. And without any software updates, there's like a threshold, which is 5 years, not 7. Or they also functionality-wise and whatnot. So developers arguing that Apple's going against the preservation and like basically video game history kind of archival style of like information type stuff, right? So this game is just going to disappear and there's going to be no other way to play it. And it would be the developers claiming really difficult to quote unquote bring it up to date to modern standards. It would require a massive team effort and load. So where do you fall on this, William? How do you feel about this situation?
I presume it's not being bought very much as well. So actually, an app of mine was thrown out of the App Store and I couldn't argue against it because Apple's review team said, strictly speaking, it should never have gone in. It was a poetry app. It was more like a book than an app. And I saw their points and we'd been through the sales thing, so I was fine. Well, mostly fine with it. I've still got my own copy, so that's nice. This developer can keep his. I was thinking, how much effort would it take to just do something? But that would have got him through the first couple of years. Just even a token update would have been enough. But now there are different screen sizes, different resolutions.
That's the problem.
So there's more technical to do. So should have pulled his finger out before and reset the clock to have more time now. But
Apple, so this is complicated. I am fully on the side of video game history preservation, for sure. But the iPhone, iPad, and in some cases the Mac are very dependent on their operating system, and their operating system is updated constantly. And Apple's guidelines and structures around how things work and operate are updated constantly. So developers are always chasing that update train. In order for this Apple could not, the developer could not just publish an update and say, we changed one line of text, here's the update, because it would get rejected. Because App Review would say, well, you need to bring it up to this standard, you need screenshots in these languages, and you need to support these screen sizes, you need to make sure the UI works in this way. Basically, they would have to update the game engine to be modernized and probably bring it to metal. Like, there's a lot of things that have happened since 2016. Basically, they'd be rebuilding the game. And the question is that okay? Like, should Apple be requiring this, and are they wrong for requiring this game to get updated? And should there be a better way? So it's complicated. I think Apple's attachment to the operating system of how these games are operating and updated is maybe a little too aggressive. And if there was a way to walk it back or silo certain games off, right? So Infinity Blade. I love that game. I brought it up last week. It's an excellent game. I wish someone would just clone it and get sued or something, but like, I love it. It wouldn't work today. It wouldn't. Epic would have to spend a lot of money and time and effort and have a whole development team basically rebuilding it from scratch to actually run on today's iPhones. And it might be worth it because they can just charge $6 or a subscription or something, and people would pay for it, and they'd probably get some value out of it. Versus a Game Boy game, right, running on an emulator, where I can download Delta, download a ROM from a game cartridge that was developed 25 years ago, and plug it into the emulator, and it runs just the same as it did 25 years ago. Pokemon Yellow doesn't need a patch to run. I can just play it. So we're in this complicated middle space, right, where you look at game consoles, when you update your PlayStation, it doesn't remove your ability to play games on the console because the operating system is separate from the game structure. And it's not until the new console comes out that any kind of architectural changes are usually made. And if there are architectural changes made, it's usually in a way that doesn't break games, or developers are given a heads up, right? It's just very rare for anything like that to happen in the console space. Same goes for Steam. It's basically just acting as a launcher, and there's a lot of patching going on and translation layers to make sure that this stuff doesn't break. The same affordances are not available, seemingly, on iPhone and iPad. I think maybe Apple should Rosetta this, is my solution. If games aren't updated, but they're still part of the historical, cultural significance, maybe this game isn't, but one could argue that all games are historically relevant because it's part of the history. Whether or not it actually had any success or not is irrelevant, but maybe Apple should have some sort of translation layer in iOS, iPadOS that allows older games to run as if they were on older operating systems. Maybe it would require more power to do that, but guess what? These chips are only getting more powerful, and if the games could run on a 2016 hardware, they can definitely run on 2025 hardware with a translation layer. So the only thing that exists today, the only option this developer has is, yes, the app's just going to die. And that's terrible. I feel for this developer. But as you say, it's probably not getting any sales. And if there's other ways to preserve video games, it would be nice if we could play them. But at the very least, the playthrough might still be available on YouTube. They could, instead of updating it for iOS and getting caught in this trap again, they could develop it for Steam or as an executable on a desktop operating system and have it playable in that way if they're that concerned about the historical validity of this game. But I do think the way Apple builds these operating systems, it's too complicated to say just submit the app and update it and never have to touch it again, because that could lead to exploits down the line. That could lead to other issues. A game developer could hide something in that, wait 7 years and execute on it, right? Like, these types of situations need to be avoided, and keeping things to modern specs, modern security concerns, and making sure everything runs the way it should on every device is a fair and valid concern. But I think that both sides of this could do better. I think the developer is wrong at being so angry about this, because clearly, if they were concerned about this game running, maybe they would have invested more into it. But at the same time, how much really is needed? And if you're not going to recoup your work, maybe it's just okay that it does die off, right? Like, again, I'm very pro video game history here, but something's got to give. These things are businesses, right? You have to follow the rules.
Well, they're businesses on both sides, Apple and the developers. So it obviously wasn't worth the developer's time to invest in his business for it, and now it isn't worth Apple's time keeping it running. So unfortunate, but no one side to blame.
We've seen some interesting stuff, and this game probably had a similar update. Apple updated a lot of just apps, and the notes for the update said Apple updated this to do something with the Apple Watch or something. Like, I remember this being a thing. Like, Apple's done this before. I don't know. There's just definitely, there's places where this does fall down and it's annoying, right? We talked about, I think last week, Sega announced like 6 of their games is just going to go away. You're not going to be able to, like Crazy Taxi and Sonic the Hedgehog are no longer going to get updated because Sega just doesn't find it worthwhile. You can play those games on other platforms. I can go to my PlayStation 5 and download a Sega 30 game collection and play it in perpetuity. But because it's on the App Store and because it has these update requirements, Crazy Taxi and Sonic the Hedgehog are getting removed from the App Store because Sega doesn't want to invest in even these massively popular, profitable games. It's still too much engineering overhead for them to bother keeping it up to date. So I think it's a little bit on the developer, but it's mostly on Apple. I think Apple, in this case, is in the wrong for the most part. Like the developer, it sucks for the developer, and they go ahead and let the app die. I understand not having the time and money, but in the meantime, like, so today there's really no option, but Apple should be working on an option. And I offer that translation layer of some kind of secure function to allow these old games to continue running.
Well, to be fair, chess hasn't been updated in about 4,000 years, so yeah, I see your point.
Well, to be fair, well, no, actually, I think Apple's chess game on Mac got updated last year, funny enough. It had its first redesign in 34 years or something like that.
Yeah, but it's the same old rules. It's boring.
Uh-huh. Yes, William doesn't have a lot of opinions about video games, but that's okay.
You could tell, I'm sorry. Hey, if you did something about Sudoku, I'd be with you. So, okay.
So, if you want to reach out to William and tell him that he's wrong about video games, where can they find you, William?
They can find me at william@appleinsider.com. I was actually expecting criticism this week because my 58 Keys channel on YouTube has done a Jane Austen week, and I even challenged somebody to say, if you can change my mind about Jane Austen being fantastic, well, have a go. Good luck. But I had a great time over with that, and go watch me on 58 Keys or read Jane Austen. Have a brilliant time. I know which of those two I'd do. What about reaching you, presumably when you're fully back from your holiday?
Well, you can always email me, wes@appleinsider.com. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm active. Last week through this week, I've kind of taken my time off seriously, so I haven't even blogged or anything. I have the Hilly Tech blog, and I haven't written anything there. But keep an eye on that. There might be an update this weekend. If not, I'll be back to my regular schedule next week. So feel free to reach out anywhere you can find me. Blue Sky's a good spot. Our forums are also great if you want to get involved in the conversation with everyone else. But one of the best ways to reach us is if you leave a review in Apple Podcasts. We'll read it here on the show. We checked on this, and as of today, I think there's only reviews from what it says is 6 days ago. So if there's anything more recent, bear with us. We will find them in the near future. But here we are with Barks Bahoy, 5 stars, insightful and informative Apple info. They enjoy the show, and they've been listening for the last year, and they enjoy the chemistry between us. Wes is clearly knowledgeable about all things Apple, while William comes across as stereotypical senior Englishman, offering balance and showing great humility.
Senior? Okay. Huh. I was enjoying that. Okay.
The content is excellent. Also, Controversy Corner is not particularly controversial. It's just people are too afraid to speak their minds. And then we have 5 stars from WASD100, WASD100. My favorite Apple podcast, 5 stars. Love the show, especially Controversy Corner. Need to discuss, not bury our heads in the sand. Thank you. So, once again, thanks for the kind review. Thank you guys for leaving these here. And, of course, if you ever want your comments read on the show, just leave a review on the Apple Podcast app, and we will try to read them here at the end each week. Once again, I want to thank you guys for listening. If you stick around, if you're an Apple Insider Plus subscriber, you get the show ad-free. There's several ways to subscribe. It's we have a Patreon, I believe. There's Apple Podcast has the subscription button in it. Pretty easy to do if you're listening in Apple Podcasts. But today we're going to be talking about social media, leaving Google, making decisions around that kind of stuff. It's a topic that's been on the tip of our tongues for a few weeks, so stick around for that. Otherwise, I'd like to thank our Sponsors this week, OpenCase, Constant Contact, ExpressVPN, and Mint Mobile. And we will be back to talk again next week.